I'm Sarah Walker, 32, and I've spent 7 years saving for my dream home. My older brother Kevin has always been the golden child, the one my parents praised despite his financial disasters. When I finally had enough for a down payment, my parents dropped a bomb. They expected me to buy a house big enough for Kevin, his wife, and 3 kids too. I never imagined my own family would treat my biggest achievement as just another opportunity to bail out my brother. If you've ever had to stand up to family pressure, drop a comment about how you handled it. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear how I finally made my parents realize I wasn't just Kevin's backup plan. Growing up in suburban Michigan, our small 3-bedroom house always felt cramped, but comfortable enough for a family of 4. My parents worked hard, Dad as a factory supervisor and Mom as a school administrator. They weren't wealthy, but we never went hungry. What I did go without, however, was equal treatment. From my earliest memories, Kevin, 2 years my senior, was positioned as the star of our family. When he needed new hockey equipment at 13, my art camp that summer was suddenly too expensive. When I brought home straight A's, my parents would nod and then immediately turn the conversation to Kevin's C+ in math, celebrating how much improvement he was showing. "Your brother just needs more support," Mom would say whenever I pointed out the imbalance. "You're naturally gifted, Sarah. Kevin has to work harder." This pattern continued throughout our adolescence. Kevin got driving lessons and access to the family car whenever he wanted. I had to take the bus until I saved enough from my after-school job to buy a rusty 15-year-old Honda. For my high school graduation, I received a $100 gift card to Office Depot. Kevin got a MacBook Pro for his, despite barely maintaining the grades needed to attend community college. I fought hard for my future. While Kevin partied through his early 20s and dropped out of 3 different degree programs, I worked 2 jobs to put myself through architecture school. My parents had set up college funds for both of us, but Kevin's business idea at 24, it's like Uber but for lawn care, drained not only his fund but most of mine too. Family helps family, Dad insisted when I discovered they'd redirected my tuition money. Kevin needs this chance to get established. The business folded within 6 months. I moved to Chicago after graduation, putting 300 miles between myself and the constant reminders that my achievements would never outshine Kevin's existence. I built a career at an innovative architecture firm, starting as a junior designer and working my way up to project manager by 30. Our phone calls became less frequent, holiday visits shorter, but I maintained a cordial relationship with my family. Distance made it easier to accept that nothing would change. Then Kevin met Melissa. She was sweet, practical, and somehow saw something in my brother worth loving. I genuinely liked her from the moment they introduced us at Thanksgiving 7 years ago. Within 18 months, they were married and expecting twins. The boys, Lucas and Liam, arrived healthy and adorable. My parents were ecstatic about becoming grandparents, transforming their home into a shrine of baby photos and toys. "Kevin is really stepping up as a father," Mom would gush during our monthly calls. "He's finding his purpose." What Kevin wasn't finding was financial stability. He jumped between sales jobs, always convinced the next company would be where he'd make his fortune. 2 years after the twins arrived, Sophia was born. 3 children under 5, and Kevin still couldn't hold a position for more than 8 months. When the economic downturn hit last year, Kevin's latest employer downsized, and he was among the first let go. With rent in their area increasing and no savings to fall back on, he moved his family into our parents' home temporarily. The calls from my parents increased dramatically after that. What had been monthly check-ins became weekly guilt sessions. "Your father and I aren't getting any younger, Sarah," Mom would say. "Family needs to support each other during hard times." I understood their concern, but I was also finally on the verge of my own milestone. After 7 years of careful budgeting, taking on extra design projects and limiting my own expenses, I had saved enough for a down payment on a modest home in Chicago. The housing market was competitive, but my connections in architecture gave me insight into upcoming properties. I was ready to stop paying rent and invest in my future. I flew home for my birthday weekend, looking forward to sharing my exciting plans. Mom insisted on cooking my favorite meal, and I arrived with a bottle of champagne, eager to celebrate both turning 32 and my upcoming house hunt. The moment I walked through the door, the chaos hit me. Toys scattered everywhere. Kevin's children running circles around the living room. Melissa looking exhausted on the couch with baby Sophia on her lap. My brother was nowhere to be seen. "He's just picking up the cake," Mom explained, hugging me while stepping over a trail of plastic dinosaurs. "Isn't it wonderful having a full house again?" Dad emerged from his home office, giving me a quick side hug before returning to referee an argument between the twins over a toy truck. Dinner was chaotic. The boys couldn't sit still. Kevin arrived late with a grocery store cake. Sorry, the bakery was closed. And conversation revolved entirely around the children's latest accomplishments and Kevin's upcoming job interview. It wasn't until dessert that my parents exchanged that look I recognized from childhood, the one that always preceded some announcement that would benefit Kevin at my expense. "Sarah, honey," Mom began, her voice shifting into what I called her reasonable tone. "We've been thinking about your house search." Dad nodded eagerly. "We've actually found the perfect place. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, finished basement. It's in Oak Park, so still close to your office." I blinked in confusion. 5 bedrooms? Dad, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom condo or small house. I don't need that much space. "But it's perfect for all of you," Mom continued as if I hadn't spoken. "Kevin and Melissa can have the master suite. The boys can share. Sophia gets her own room as she gets older, and you'd still have a guest room plus home office." The champagne I'd been sipping threatened to come back up. "All of us? I don't understand." Kevin finally joined the conversation, his tone suggesting this had been discussed extensively without me. "Sarah, it makes perfect sense. You've got the down payment and good credit. I can contribute to monthly payments once I'm back on my feet. The kids need a stable environment, and this way, we all win." I looked at Melissa, who was studying her plate intently, her discomfort obvious. At least someone else in the room recognized how inappropriate this suggestion was. "I've been saving for my own place," I said carefully. "I'm not looking for roommates." "Don't be selfish, Sarah," Dad said sharply. "This isn't about roommates. This is family. Kevin has 3 children to consider." And just like that, I was 10 years old again, being told my needs didn't matter because Kevin's were more important. "The house costs $850,000, Mom continued, pulling out her phone to show me pictures of an enormous Victorian home. "With your savings and salary, the bank will approve the mortgage easily." My budget was $400,000. Maximum. I had been careful with my calculations, ensuring my monthly payments would be manageable even if my job situation changed. "That's more than double what I can afford," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Kevin waved dismissively. "You're being too conservative. You make good money, and it's an investment. Plus, once I get back on track, I'll take over the payments completely." The same promise he'd made about the business loan, about the car loan, about the credit card, debt my parents had helped him clear twice. "We've already scheduled a viewing for tomorrow morning," Dad announced. "The real estate market moves fast these days." I stared at my parents in disbelief. "You scheduled a house viewing on my behalf? Without asking me?" Mom reached across to pat my hand. "We knew you'd be excited once you understood the opportunity. It's a chance to help your brother while also securing your future." "My future doesn't include buying a house for Kevin's family," I said, feeling my carefully maintained composure slipping. Kevin's expression darkened. "After everything Mom and Dad have done for you, this is how you repay them? By refusing to help when we need it most?" The injustice of his statement left me speechless. What exactly had they done for me that compared to what they'd given him? "It's getting late," I finally said, standing up. "I think I need to head back to my hotel." "You're staying at a hotel?" Mom looked hurt. "But we cleared out the sewing room for you." "The sewing room with an air mattress, you mean?" I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "While Kevin's family has 3 bedrooms? They live here," Dad said firmly. You're just visiting. I grabbed my jacket. Exactly. I'm just visiting. And I'll be looking for my own home in Chicago, not a family compound in Oak Park. The drive back to my hotel was a blur. Tears streamed down my face as years of suppressed feelings bubbled to the surface. I had spent my entire life accepting less, so Kevin could have more. And somehow, it still wasn't enough. In my hotel room, I finally broke down completely. I called my best friend Taylor, who had witnessed the Kevin dynamic since college. They want you to what? She exclaimed after I explained the situation. That's beyond inappropriate, Sarah. It's exploitation. Maybe I am being selfish, I sniffled. They're family after all. Stop it, Taylor said firmly. Buying a house is the biggest investment of your life. You've worked incredibly hard for this. You deserve to choose where and how you live. My phone buzzed with texts from Mom. You've disappointed everyone with your attitude. Call us when you're ready to discuss this rationally. From Kevin. Way. To ruin your own birthday dinner. Real mature. The next morning, instead of joining the house viewing, I boarded an early flight back to Chicago. By the time I landed, I had 12 missed calls and a voicemail from Dad suggesting we reconvene next weekend to sort out the details. What details? I hadn't agreed to anything. For the next week, the pressure intensified. Mom sent daily links to the Oak Park house, noting that another showing had generated serious interest, and we needed to act fast. Kevin texted about paint colors and whether the basement could be converted to a play area. Dad called my office, something he'd never done before, to discuss investment strategy. Finally, they proposed a family Zoom meeting to get on the same page. I agreed, thinking this was my chance to firmly establish my boundaries. Instead, it was an ambush. Kevin had prepared a PowerPoint presentation titled Walker Family Housing Solution. There were slides showing a financial breakdown where I would cover the down payment and 70% of the monthly mortgage. Kevin would contribute when possible and take over completely within 5 years. There were floor plans with room assignments already labeled. My space? A bedroom and bathroom in the finished attic, the furthest point from the main family areas. This way, you'll have privacy, Melissa said quietly, the first time she'd spoken directly about the arrangement. The kids can be energetic. I don't need privacy in an attic, I said. I need my own home. This is so like you, Kevin snapped. Always thinking about yourself. I have 3 children, Sarah. 3. Where are we supposed to live? The same. Place you lived before you lost your job? I suggested. Or maybe somewhere within your actual budget. That's enough, Dad interrupted. Sarah, your brother needs help. This isn't up for debate. And in that moment, something inside me finally broke. Not in the way it had before, collapsing inward with hurt and resentment. This time, it broke open, releasing something I'd kept contained my entire life. Anger. You're right, Dad, I said calmly. It's not up for debate. Because I'm not doing it. I'm buying my own home for myself, within my budget. Kevin's housing is not my responsibility, Mom gasped. After everything we've sacrificed for you? What exactly have you sacrificed for me? I asked. My college fund went to Kevin's failed business. My achievements were footnotes compared to Kevin's smallest efforts. I worked through college while he got multiple do-overs on your dime. So please, tell me what sacrifices you've made specifically for me. The call ended abruptly with Dad saying we'd continue this discussion when you're being reasonable. But as I sat in my apartment that night, I realized something profound. I didn't want to continue this discussion at all. For the first time, I saw our family dynamic with complete clarity. I wasn't just struggling with a one-time unreasonable request. I was caught in a toxic pattern that had defined my entire life. I decided then that I would continue my house hunt as planned. But I wouldn't tell them about it. I would let them believe I was still considering their proposal while I secured my own future. It felt dishonest, something I'd never been comfortable with. But after 32 years of direct communication getting me nowhere, perhaps a different approach was necessary. The following Monday, I contacted Monica Reynolds, a realtor recommended by a colleague. We met for coffee to discuss my actual requirements: a 2-bedroom house or condo within my budget, ideally with space I could convert to a home studio for my personal design projects. Just to clarify, Monica said as she took notes, this is just for you? No children or other family members? Just me, I confirmed, feeling a weight lift simply by stating it out loud. Wonderful, she smiled. That opens up many more options. Let's focus on finding something that's perfect for your lifestyle. Over the next 3 weeks, Monica showed me 15 properties. Some were immediate no's, too dark, terrible layouts, kitchen appliances from the 70s. Others had potential, but didn't quite feel right. Throughout the process, my parents continued their campaign. Mom sent daily text updates about the Oak Park house. Dad forwarded articles about multi-generational living benefits. Kevin escalated to showing up unannounced at my apartment one evening. "We need to talk about this housing situation," he demanded when I opened the door. "There's nothing to talk about," I replied, blocking his entry. "I'm still looking at options." "The Oak Park house won't wait forever," he said. "Another family is interested. Then maybe they should buy it." Kevin's face reddened. "Why are you being so difficult? This is a perfect solution for everyone." "For everyone except me," I pointed out. "Classic Sarah," he sneered. "Always the victim." I closed the door without another word. The next day, Monica called with excitement. "I have something special to show you. It just hit the market this morning." The house was a 1920s craftsman bungalow in Ravenswood, a neighborhood I'd always loved. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, with a sunroom perfect for my design work. The previous owners had updated the kitchen and bathrooms while preserving original hardwood floors and built-in shelving. The backyard was small, but featured a mature maple tree and enough space for morning coffee on the brick patio. "It's listed at $390,000, Monica said, "slightly under your maximum." Walking through the space, I felt something I hadn't expected, a sense of belonging. I could envision my furniture in the living room, my drafting table in the sunroom, morning coffee in the kitchen nook. This wasn't just a financial investment. It was the foundation for the life I wanted to build. "I want to make an offer," I decided on the spot. Monica helped me prepare a competitive bid slightly above asking price, with a letter to the sellers explaining why their home spoke to me. 2 anxious days later, she called with the news. My offer had been accepted. That evening, Mom texted, "Great news. The Oak Park sellers are considering our pre-approval. Dad and I added our names as co-signers to help with the loan amount." I stared at the message, my stomach churning. They had submitted loan paperwork using my information without my consent? That had to be illegal, not to mention a complete violation of boundaries. I didn't respond, unsure what to say that wouldn't reveal my own housing plans. Instead, I threw myself into the closing process for my bungalow, addressing inspection items and finalizing mortgage details. Through it all, my parents intensified their campaign. Mom sent links to furniture that would work well for the boys' room. Dad called about insurance quotes he'd obtained for the Oak Park property. Kevin texted about paint colors and whether certain walls could be removed to open up the space. I deflected as best I could while proceeding with my own plans. Still weighing options? Need more time to consider. Let's discuss after my work deadline. During this time, I met my soon-to-be neighbor Jordan while visiting the bungalow for the final inspection. She was gardening in the adjacent yard and came over to introduce herself. "You're buying the Sullivan place?" she asked warmly. "If all goes well with closing," I confirmed. "It's a wonderful home. Ted and Margaret were here for 30 years before downsizing to Arizona. Are you moving in alone?" The question was innocent, but it triggered all my recent anxiety. "Yes, just me. My family isn't thrilled about that." Something in my tone must have conveyed the underlying tension because Jordan nodded knowingly. Family expectations can be challenging. When I divorced 5 years ago, my parents were convinced I'd made the biggest mistake of my life, moving to a single-income household. "What happened?" She smiled, gesturing to her thriving garden and the comfortable chairs on her porch. "I built the life that was right for me, not the one they thought I should have. Eventually, they came around, and if they hadn't," she shrugged, "that would have been their loss." Her confidence was inspiring. Here was someone who had set boundaries and created a life on her terms. Maybe I could do the same. The closing date approached rapidly. I signed countless documents, transferred my life savings for the down payment, and received confirmation that the house would be mine in 2 weeks. Despite the stress of secretly managing this process while fielding family pressure, I felt more certain than ever that I was making the right decision. During the final walkthrough, I took measurements and photos to plan furniture placement. Standing in what would be my bedroom, I felt a surge of both terror and exhilaration. This was really happening. I was buying a home, my home, designed around my needs and no one else's. That night, Mom called with wonderful news that the Oak Park seller had accepted what she called our offer, contingent on financing approval. "We need you to come home this weekend to sign the paperwork," she said cheerfully. "Kevin's already planning the move." My heart raced. The timing couldn't be worse. My actual closing was scheduled for Friday. I'd be the legal owner of my bungalow in 3 days. "I can't come this weekend," I said carefully. "Work deadline." "This is more important than work, Sarah," she insisted. "Family comes first. I'll come next weekend," I promised, knowing this delay would force the conversation I'd been avoiding. "We can discuss everything then." My closing proceeded without a hitch. On Friday afternoon, I received the keys to my new home. I didn't celebrate or tell anyone except Taylor. Instead, I spent the weekend moving essential items from my apartment, arranging furniture delivery, and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. On Monday, Mom texted, "Oak Park sellers getting anxious. Need your signature by Wednesday or we lose the house." I took a deep breath and typed, "I'll be home Saturday. We can talk then." The responding flurry of messages about irresponsibility and letting the family down only strengthened my resolve. For the first time in my life, I was prioritizing my needs without guilt or apology. The time for silence was almost over. By Friday, I had officially moved out of my apartment and into my bungalow. The space was sparsely furnished with just my bedroom set, couch, and kitchen essentials, but it was mine. Every square foot represented my hard work and choices. I called my parents that evening. "I'm driving in tomorrow morning. I thought maybe everyone could meet at 2 to see the house I've chosen." "Finally," Mom exclaimed. "We were beginning to think you weren't serious about this. Kevin and Melissa are so excited to see their new home." "Just to be clear," I said carefully, "I've made a decision about housing, and I want to share that with everyone tomorrow." "We know, sweetheart. The Oak Park house. It's perfect timing since the landlord is raising their rent again. Kevin can start moving their essentials on Sunday." I didn't correct her assumption. "See you at 2. I'll text the address in the morning." The drive to Michigan the next day was the longest 5 hours of my life. I rehearsed what I would say, how I would explain my decision. I considered every possible reaction and how I would respond. By the time I pulled into town, my hands were shaking from nerves and excessive coffee. At 1:30, I arrived at my new address and texted the location to my family. I had debated whether to meet them somewhere neutral first, but decided it was better for them to see immediately what I had done. No misunderstandings, no room for manipulation. At precisely 2 o'clock, 2 vehicles pulled into my driveway. Dad's SUV followed by Kevin's minivan. I stood on the small front porch, keys in hand, as they exited their vehicles. "This isn't Oak Park," Dad said immediately, looking around the modest neighborhood. "No, it's Ravenswood," I confirmed. This is my new home. Mom looked confused. But this isn't the house we discussed. It's the house I bought, I clarified. For myself. Kevin stormed up the walkway. What the hell is this, Sarah? Where are we supposed to live? Not here, I said firmly. This is my house, 2 bedrooms, perfect for me. 2 bedrooms, Melissa echoed, glancing back at their children, still in the minivan. Is this some kind of joke? Dad demanded. After all our planning? After we submitted the offer in your name? Which was completely inappropriate, I pointed out. I never agreed to buy that house. Mom's expression shifted, from confusion to anger. So, while we've been trying to solve family problems, you've been secretly buying a tiny house for yourself. How selfish can you be? It's not selfish to invest my savings in my own home, I said. What's selfish is expecting me to take on a mortgage twice my budget to house Kevin's family. We're your family, Kevin shouted, drawing the attention of my new neighbors across the street. Where are we supposed to sleep? The boys need their own room. Sophia needs space for her crib. Melissa needs a home office for her online classes. Those aren't my problems to solve, I said, surprised at how steady my voice remained. I'm happy to help you look for affordable housing options, but I'm not buying a house for you. How the hell are we supposed to fit in this dollhouse? Dad gestured dismissively at my beautiful bungalow. You're not, I stated plainly. That's the point. This is my home, not a family compound. Mom started crying, a tactic that had worked on me since childhood. After everything we've done for you, all the sacrifices. What sacrifices, Mom? My entire life, Kevin has been the priority. My college fund, my achievements, my needs always came second. Not anymore. So you're just abandoning your family when we need you most? Kevin's voice rose even higher. The boys have been talking about having a backyard for weeks. They can have a backyard that their parents provide, I said. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just not bankrupting myself to solve problems you created. Kevin turned to our parents. Are you going to let her talk to me like this? After everything you've done to make this happen? Dad took a threatening step toward me. You will call your realtor right now and explain the mistake. We had a family agreement. No. You had an assumption, I corrected. I never agreed to anything. You led us on, Mom accused, letting us think you were considering the Oak Park house while sneaking around behind our backs. She wasn't entirely wrong. I had avoided direct confrontation by deflecting rather than stating outright that I wasn't interested. Part of me felt guilty about that approach. You're right that I should have been more direct, I acknowledged. But every time I tried to express my perspective, I was shut down or guilted. This was the only way I could secure my own future without interference. Your future? Kevin laughed bitterly. What about my children's future? Where are they supposed to live now? The same place they were living before you decided I was going to buy you a mansion, I suggested, or somewhere within your actual budget. There's nothing in our budget, he exploded. Then maybe that's the real problem you should be addressing, I said. Not expecting your sister to fix it. Melissa finally spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. Kevin, she's right. We need to figure this out ourselves. He whirled on her. Whose side are you on? The side of reality, she replied, then turned to me. I'm sorry, Sarah. I never thought this plan was fair to you. This is ridiculous, Dad interrupted. Sarah, you have 24 hours to fix this situation. Call your bank, explain the mistake, and get the process started for the Oak Park house. I took a deep breath. That's not going to happen, Dad. I've signed the papers. I've moved in. This is my home. Then you're no longer part of this family, he declared. Despite anticipating this reaction, the words still cut deep. Mom gasped, looking torn between agreement and shock at how quickly the situation had escalated. If being part of the family requires sacrificing my financial security and independence, then I guess I'm not, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. Let's go, Dad barked to everyone. She's made her choice. Kevin stormed back to his minivan. Melissa following with an apologetic glance in my direction. Mom hesitated, looking between Dad and me as if waiting for one of us to cave. "I love you, Mom," I said softly. "That hasn't changed. But this is my home, and I'm not going to apologize for it." "You've broken this family," she whispered before following Dad back to their car. I stood on my porch watching them drive away, an odd mixture of devastation and liberation washing over me. For the first time in my life, I had directly opposed the family dynamic that had defined my existence for 32 years. That night, alone in my new house, I cried until no more tears would come. Not from regret, but from the emotional release of finally breaking free from patterns that had contained me for decades. As painful as the confrontation had been, I knew with absolute certainty that I had made the right decision. For 3 weeks, I heard nothing from my family. No calls, no texts, not even angry messages. The silence was both painful and peaceful. I missed them, especially Mom. But I also experienced a new kind of freedom in my quiet home. Each morning, I woke up in my own space, arranged exactly as I wanted it. Each evening, I returned to a sanctuary that reflected my tastes and needs. During this time, my support system proved invaluable. Taylor drove down from Milwaukee to help me unpack and celebrate with a proper housewarming dinner, just the two of us with takeout Thai food on my new dining table. "I'm proud of you," she said, raising her wine glass in a toast. Setting boundaries is hard, especially with family. My neighbor Jordan brought over a potted plant as a welcome gift. "Homes need growing things," she explained. "It helps make the space feel alive." We began a tradition of Saturday morning coffee on my small patio, discussing everything from gardening tips to professional challenges. Her friendship eased the isolation I might otherwise have felt. My colleagues noticed the change in me, too. "You seem more centered," my boss commented after I presented a particularly innovative design concept. "Whatever you're doing in your personal life, it's reflecting positively in your work." What I wasn't sharing with anyone was the pain that still surfaced at unexpected moments. Passing a toy store and thinking of my nephews. Seeing a mother and daughter shopping together. Small reminders of the family connections I'd potentially sacrificed for my independence. Then, 23 days after the confrontation, I received a text from an unknown number. "It's Melissa. Got a new phone. Wanted to say I understand your decision and I'm sorry about how everything happened. The boys miss their aunt." The message was followed by a photo of the twins and Sophia, all three smiling at the camera. I stared at their faces, a lump forming in my throat. The children were innocent in all this. They hadn't created the toxic dynamics or unreasonable expectations. "Thank you for reaching out," I replied. "I miss them too. How are you all doing?" "Managing," came the response. "Found a rental with help from my parents. Kevin's still angry but working again." "Your parents—" She didn't finish the thought. "My parents what?" I prompted. "They've been telling everyone you abandoned the family. Kevin's been posting about it too." "I'm sorry." I wasn't entirely surprised. Dad had always controlled the family narrative. When Kevin dropped out of college, it was because the professors couldn't recognize his unique learning style. When he lost jobs, it was because the company couldn't appreciate his creative approach. Sure enough, when I finally worked up the courage to check my extended family's social media accounts, I found several pointed references to family loyalty and selfish choices. My cousin Angela had posted directly, "Blood is thicker than water. Some people need to remember where they came from." The public shaming was a new low, even for my family. It stung, but it also reinforced that I'd made the right decision. If they were willing to vilify me for buying my own home, what other unreasonable demands might have followed? The holidays approached, creating a new level of discomfort. Thanksgiving. I'd always been at my parents' house. Would I be welcome? Should I even want to attend? I decided to wait for an invitation rather than inserting myself where I might not be wanted. No invitation came. Instead, I saw Instagram posts of the family gathering, everyone pointedly having a wonderful time without me. Melissa sent a private text afterward. Missed you today. The food wasn't nearly as good without your cranberry relish. The simple acknowledgement meant more than she could know. December brought new distractions. A senior architect at our firm left unexpectedly, and I was asked to take over his projects temporarily. The vote of confidence from leadership was both flattering and challenging. 14-hour workdays became the norm as I juggled multiple, high-profile clients. The immersion in work provided an escape from family drama, but eventually I recognized it for what it was. Avoidance. I couldn't build my healing around career advancement. I needed to process what had happened and find a path forward that didn't involve either capitulating to unreasonable demands or completely severing family ties. I found a therapist who specialized in family dynamics. Dr. Larson helped me understand that the patterns in my family weren't unusual, just unhealthy. The golden child and scapegoat dynamic is common in dysfunctional families, she explained during our third session. Your brother was assigned the role of golden child, while you became the responsible one expected to make sacrifices. But why? I asked. What made them choose those roles for us? It's rarely conscious, she said. Often it stems from the parents' own unresolved issues or family patterns. Your breaking the pattern is actually healthy, even though it feels disruptive and painful now. Working with Dr. Larson, I began to understand that my parents' behavior wasn't personal, even though it felt intensely so. They were repeating cycles they themselves had likely experienced. 6 months after the confrontation, I hosted my first real dinner party in my bungalow. I invited colleagues, neighbors, and friends, transforming my small dining area and living room into a warm gathering space with rented tables and chairs. Jordan helped me prepare a menu that could be mostly made ahead, allowing me to actually enjoy my guests. As we shared wine and conversation, I looked around at the diverse group of people I'd connected with. While none could replace family, together they formed a chosen community that supported and celebrated me without conditions. The following weekend, I was surprised by an unexpected visitor. My Aunt Catherine, Dad's sister, rang my doorbell early, Saturday morning. I was in Chicago for a conference, she explained when I opened the door. Thought I'd stop by and see this house I've heard so much about. Her tone gave nothing away about which version of events she'd heard or believed. Come in, I offered, suddenly self-conscious about my modest home after all the family drama it had caused. Aunt Catherine wandered through the rooms, admiring the original woodwork and updated kitchen. In the sunroom, she paused at my drafting table. You've made a beautiful home here, Sarah, she said finally. It suits you perfectly. Thank you, I replied cautiously. I love it. She sat on the window seat, gesturing for me to join her. Your father is stubborn. Always has been. When we were growing up, he was the favorite too. Dad was the golden child? I asked, surprised. She nodded. Our parents gave him everything. College tuition, down payment for his first house, business loans. I worked my way through school and built my career without help. The parallel to my own experience was striking. I never knew that. We don't speak much about it, she admitted. But watching history repeat itself with you and Kevin has been difficult. I should have said something years ago. Would it have made a difference? She sighed. Probably not. These patterns are deeply ingrained. But I want you to know that I understand your choice, and I respect it. Her validation brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Have you heard how Kevin's doing? They found a rental house, smaller than they wanted, but adequate. Melissa's parents helped with the security deposit. Kevin's working at his father-in-law's construction company now. That's good, I said, genuinely relieved. Are they okay? They're adjusting, Aunt Catherine said diplomatically. Your mother misses you, though she won't admit it. The conversation shifted to lighter topics. My work, her travels, shared family memories that didn't center around the current conflict. When she left, she hugged me tightly. "Don't let them make you doubt yourself," she whispered. "You've done nothing wrong." Her visit was a turning point. If Aunt Catherine could understand my perspective, perhaps others might too. More importantly, it confirmed that I wasn't irrational or selfish for protecting my boundaries. As Christmas approached, I debated whether to reach out to my parents. Before I could decide, I received a text from Melissa. "Kevin got a job offer in Columbus. Good salary, benefits. We're moving after New Year's." The news was surprising, but made sense. A fresh start might be exactly what they needed. "That's wonderful," I replied. "Ohio isn't that far. Maybe I could visit sometime to see the kids." "They'd love that," she responded. "And Sarah, thank you." "For what?" "For standing your ground. Watching you refuse to be manipulated gave me courage to push Kevin toward this opportunity instead of waiting for bailouts. We needed to solve our own problems." Her message left me speechless. I never expected my actions to have a positive ripple effect on their family dynamics. Perhaps, by breaking the pattern, I had created space for everyone to grow in unexpected ways. As November transitioned to December, I found myself thinking more about reconciliation. The approaching holidays amplified the family separation, and despite everything, I missed them. Not the dynamics or the unreasonable expectations, but the connection itself. After much consideration and a lengthy session with Dr. Larson, I decided to send a holiday card to my parents' home. Nothing elaborate, just a simple card with a photo of me on my front porch and my new address printed inside. I included a short note. "Thinking of you this holiday season. My door is always open. Love, Sarah." It was a small olive branch, extended, without expectations. I mailed it on December 1st, then tried to put it out of my mind. If they weren't ready to reconnect, I wouldn't push. 2 weeks later, my phone rang with my mother's number. I stared at it for 3 rings, heart racing, before answering. "Hello?" "Sarah." Mom's voice sounded tentative, lacking its usual confidence. "We received your card." "I'm glad," I said, unsure how to navigate this fragile moment. An awkward silence stretched between us, filled with unspoken grievances and uncertainty. "Your house looks nice," she finally offered. "In the picture." "Thank you." I've finished setting up the sunroom as a design studio. It gets beautiful morning light. Another pause. I could hear her breathing, perhaps searching for words. "We're having Christmas dinner at 4 this year," she said eventually. "If you wanted to come?" It wasn't an apology or even a direct acknowledgement of the conflict, but it was an opening. "I'd like that," I replied. "Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself," she said. Then, after a moment, "Kevin and his family will be there. They're moving to Ohio in January." "I heard," I said. "Melissa mentioned it." "You've been in touch with Melissa?" She sounded surprised. "Occasionally," I confirmed. "The children shouldn't be affected by adult disagreements." "No," she agreed softly. "They shouldn't." The conversation ended shortly after, neither of us quite ready to delve deeper. But the invitation itself represented progress. I spent the following week preparing for the visit, discussing strategies with Dr. Larson for maintaining boundaries while working toward healing. "Remember that reconciliation doesn't mean returning to old patterns," she advised. "It means building new, healthier connections while honoring your own needs." I also invited Jordan to accompany me to Michigan, partly as moral support and partly because I didn't want her spending Christmas alone. She agreed immediately. "I'm excellent at diffusing tense family situations," she promised. "Plus, I make a mean sweet potato casserole." As Christmas approached, my anxiety increased. What if nothing had changed? What if they still expected me to solve Kevin's problems? What if the invitation was just a setup for another confrontation? "We can leave anytime you need to," Jordan reassured me as we drove to Michigan on Christmas morning. Just give me a signal, and I'll suddenly develop a migraine that requires immediate departure. Her support steadied me as we pulled into my parents' driveway at 3:45. The house looked festive with lights and wreaths, much as it always had during holidays. Taking a deep breath, I rang the doorbell, a strange formality for the home where I'd grown up, Mom answered, her expression a mixture of happiness and uncertainty. Sarah, you came. Merry Christmas, Mom, I said, stepping forward for a hug that felt both familiar and strangely distant. I introduced Jordan, who charmed Mom immediately with compliments about the decorations and the offer of her casserole for the dinner table. Dad appeared in the hallway behind her, his face unreadable. Sarah. Hi, Dad. Merry Christmas. He nodded stiffly before returning to the living room where I could hear the twins playing. He'll come around, Mom whispered, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. The house was crowded with familiar holiday chaos. Kevin and Melissa were already there, the children excited about presents and Christmas cookies. Kevin barely acknowledged my arrival, but Melissa came over to hug me. Thank you for coming, she said sincerely. It means a lot. Dinner was a tense affair despite the festive setting. Dad maintained a polite but distant demeanor, directing most conversation toward Jordan rather than engaging with me directly. Kevin focused entirely on the children, or spoke with our parents about the upcoming move to Ohio. It wasn't until dessert that the facade cracked. Dad, after his second glass of wine, cleared his throat meaningfully. Sarah, now that you've had time to settle into your house, he began, emphasis suggesting he still found it inadequate. Perhaps you're reconsidering your living situation. Mom shot him a warning look, but he continued. The housing market in Chicago is excellent for sellers right now. You could likely make a profit already and upgrade to something more suitable. My home is perfectly suitable, Dad, I replied evenly. I'm very happy there. But surely you're rattling around in it by yourself, he persisted. Wouldn't you prefer something with more potential? I understood immediately what he was suggesting. Despite everything, he still held out hope that I would eventually provide housing for Kevin's family. I love the potential my home already has, I said firmly. The sunroom has transformed my design work, and I'm considering expanding my garden in spring. Gardens are wonderful projects, Jordan interjected smoothly. Sarah's property has excellent soil composition. We've already discussed potentially sharing a vegetable plot between our yards, Kevin snorted. Vegetables. Great. That'll really help with housing costs in Columbus. Kevin, Melissa warned quietly. What? We're all thinking it, he retorted. Sarah got her perfect little dollhouse while we're moving 300 miles, away from family because we can't afford to stay. You're moving because you found a great job opportunity, I corrected. That's something to celebrate, not resent. We wouldn't need to move if you'd just been willing to help, he muttered. That's enough, Mom interrupted. It's Christmas. Let's not rehash old arguments. It's not an old argument when we're still dealing with the consequences, Dad countered. Sarah's choices have forced significant changes for this entire family. My choices? I put down my fork. I made a responsible financial decision for my future. How is that forcing anything on anyone? Because family takes care of family, Dad insisted. That's how it's always been. No, I said quietly but firmly. Kevin takes care of Kevin's family. I take care of mine. That's how it should be. You don't have a family, Kevin said dismissively. You have an empty house. Jordan placed a steadying hand on my arm, but I didn't need it. For the first time in these confrontations, I felt completely centered in my conviction. I have a home that brings me joy, work that fulfills me, and relationships that support rather than deplete me, I replied. That's not emptiness, Kevin. That's a life built on my own terms. The table fell silent. Even the children seemed to sense the tension, unusually quiet with their desserts. Finally, Melissa spoke. She's right, Kevin. We needed to start taking Responsibility for our own choices instead of expecting bailouts. Kevin glared at her but said nothing more. After dinner, the adults separated naturally. Kevin took the children to play with new toys, Dad retreated to his study, and Jordan helped Melissa clear the table. I found myself alone in the kitchen with Mom as she prepared coffee. "Your friend is lovely," she said, arranging cups on a tray. "She's been a wonderful neighbor," I agreed. Her friendship made the transition much easier. Mom's hand stilled on the sugar bowl. "I'm sorry it was difficult," she said quietly. "The transition." It wasn't a full apology, but it was an acknowledgement. "Thank you," I replied. "It was hard being cut off from everyone." "You cut yourself off," she pointed out, but without the accusation that would have accompanied the statement months earlier. "Made a different choice than what was expected," I corrected gently. "The cutting off happened when that choice wasn't respected." She nodded slowly. "I've been thinking about what you said, about Kevin always being the priority." I waited, hardly daring to breathe. "I don't think we meant to create that imbalance," she continued. "He just always seemed to need more help." "Because he was given more help," I suggested. "It became a cycle." "Perhaps." She poured cream into a small pitcher. "Your Aunt Catherine came for Thanksgiving. She had quite a lot to say about family patterns." I smiled, making a mental note to thank Aunt Catherine. "She visited me too." "I know." Mom met my eyes directly. "She helped me understand some things I hadn't wanted to see." Before I could respond, the kitchen door swung open as Melissa entered with a stack of plates. The moment of connection passed, but something had shifted. We left shortly after coffee. The goodbye was awkward, but without the hostility of our last parting. Mom hugged me tightly and whispered, "Don't be a stranger." Dad shook my hand formally, but added, "Drive safely." Kevin nodded from across the room but made no move to approach. The most meaningful goodbye came from Melissa, who embraced me warmly. "We'll send our new address once we're settled," she promised. The boys would love visits from their aunt. On the drive home, Jordan waited until we were on the highway before asking, "How do you feel?" I considered the question carefully. Relieved, sad, hopeful, all at once. "Family healing isn't linear," she observed. There was real progress today, even with the tension. She was right. The visit hadn't been perfect, but it had opened a door that had seemed permanently closed. As we crossed back into Illinois, I realized that I was returning to my home with a lighter heart than when I'd left it. The new year arrived with fresh beginnings. Kevin and his family moved to Columbus in mid-January. Mom sent occasional texts, with updates and photos of the grandchildren in their new home. Dad remained distant, but no longer openly hostile. I channeled my energy into developing both my home and career. The design director position became permanent, with a substantial raise that allowed me to begin landscaping projects I'd only dreamed about when purchasing the property. Jordan and I expanded our garden plans to include a shared herb section between our properties. Taylor visited monthly, bringing plants from her favorite Milwaukee nursery and professional advice for my increasingly complex projects. More importantly, I continued therapy, understanding that building a healthy relationship with my family would require ongoing effort and clear boundaries. Some days brought progress, others setbacks, but the overall trajectory moved toward healing. "The goal isn't perfect harmony," Dr. Larson reminded me during a particularly difficult session after Dad had made another comment about my temporary living situation. "The goal is authentic relationship based on mutual respect." By spring, that mutual respect was cautiously emerging. Mom called weekly, our conversations gradually becoming more natural. She expressed genuine interest in my work and home projects, rather than immediately redirecting to Kevin's situation. Dad remained more resistant to change, but softened slightly when I helped him research treatment options for his developing arthritis. It was a small opening, but I recognized his acceptance of my help as the olive branch it was intended to be. 1 year after moving into my bungalow, I decided it was time for a proper housewarming. Not the rushed dinner with Taylor on moving boxes, but a real celebration of the home I'd created and the life I'd built within it. I sent invitations to colleagues, neighbors, friends from college, and yes, my family. I didn't expect my parents to make the 5-hour drive, but I wanted them to know they were welcome in my space. To my surprise, Mom called immediately after receiving the invitation. "I'd like to come," she said. "Your father has a conference that weekend, but I could drive down myself." "I'd love that," I replied, genuinely pleased. "There's a comfortable guest room ready whenever you visit." The day of the party arrived with perfect early summer weather. Jordan helped me string lights across the backyard patio, and Taylor arranged flowers throughout the house. By 6 o'clock, my home was filled with laughter and conversation as 30 people mingled between indoor and outdoor spaces. When Mom arrived, I watched her take in the transformation of the once-empty house into a vibrant, personalized home. Her expression shifted from uncertainty to something approaching pride. "Sarah, this is beautiful," she said, squeezing my hand. "You've created something special here." "Thank you," I replied, the simple acknowledgement healing something deep within me. "Let me show you around." As I guided her through rooms now filled with art, books, and carefully chosen furniture, I could see her understanding growing. This wasn't a temporary stopping point or an act of rebellion. It was a thoughtfully constructed life. In the kitchen, surrounded by friends preparing appetizers and mixing drinks, Mom pulled me aside. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "We should have supported your dreams the way we supported Kevin's. I'm sorry we didn't see that until now." The words I'd waited decades to hear brought unexpected tears. "Thank you for saying that," I managed. "Your Aunt Catherine helped me understand that families can support each other without sacrificing individuals," she continued. "I'm trying to learn from my mistakes." "That means everything to me," I said honestly. Later, as twilight settled and fairy lights illuminated the garden, I found myself surveying the gathering with profound gratitude. My home was filled with people who valued me for exactly who I was. And somewhere in that mix, however tentatively, was the beginning of a new kind of family connection based on respect rather than obligation. One journey had ended when I received the keys to this house, but another, more meaningful one, was just beginning. 2 years after moving into my bungalow, my morning routine had become sacred. I'd wake with the sunrise, brew coffee in the kitchen that now featured open shelving I'd designed myself, and take my mug to the sunroom where plants thrived in the eastern light. Those quiet moments, surrounded by evidence of my choices and creativity, represented everything I'd fought for. The home had evolved beyond my initial vision. The backyard now boasted raised garden beds where Jordan and I grew vegetables and herbs. The second bedroom had transformed from a basic guest room to a multi-purpose space with a comfortable pull-out sofa, desk, and storage for my growing collection of architectural reference books. Every corner reflected intentional decisions rather than compromises. My relationship with Melissa had deepened in unexpected ways. After their move to Columbus, she began bringing the children to visit every few months. Without Kevin's presence, she relaxed into a warmer, more confident version of herself. The twins, now 8, loved helping in the garden and building elaborate forts in the living room. Little Sophia, at 4, followed me everywhere, helping with home projects and asking endless questions. "You're so good with them," Melissa observed, during their most recent visit. "They count down the days until Aunt Sarah weekends." "I love having them here," I admitted. "On my terms, it's completely different," she nodded, understanding. "Kevin still doesn't get it. He thinks you should have done more for us. But watching you set boundaries helped me find my own voice. Did you know I'm starting my own business?" I hadn't known. She explained that she'd begun a virtual assistant service specializing in support for real estate agents, working around the children's schedules and building a client list through referrals. "I wouldn't have had the confidence before," she said, Seeing you stand firm despite so much pressure showed me what was possible. Her words stayed with me long after they returned to Ohio. My decision, which had felt so personal and even selfish at times, had created ripples I never anticipated. My parents' evolution proved more complicated, but no less significant. After the housewarming party, Mom began visiting regularly, usually alone but occasionally with Dad. His initial stiffness gradually softened as he witnessed how I'd transformed the property. The landscaping adds real value, he noted during their spring visit, examining the stone pathway I'd installed connecting the patio to the garden. Smart investment. From him, this qualified as effusive praise. More telling was how he stopped referring to my home as temporary or suggesting upgrades that might accommodate Kevin's family. During their last visit, he even helped me install ceiling fans in the bedrooms, working alongside me with unexpected patience as I insisted on learning rather than just watching. "You've got a good eye for this," he commented when we finished. "Like your grandfather. He could look at a space and immediately see what it needed." The comparison to his father, a skilled carpenter he'd always admired, felt like a significant shift in how he perceived me. Kevin remained the most resistant to our family's changing dynamics. His life in Columbus had stabilized financially, but our relationship remained distant, limited to brief interactions during family gatherings. I accepted this as part of the healing process, understanding that some relationships might need more time than others, if they recovered at all. Professional growth paralleled my personal evolution. The promotion to design director led to speaking, opportunities at industry conferences, and mentorship responsibilities with junior architects. My confidence in professional settings grew directly from the strength I'd developed, standing up for myself personally. During a summer staff retreat, our firm's founder asked each senior team member to share a pivotal moment in their development. When my turn came, I found myself describing not a professional breakthrough, but my decision to buy this house. It taught me that creating space according to your own vision rather than others' expectations isn't selfish, I explained. It's necessary for authentic work. I bring that philosophy to every project now, helping clients discover what they truly need rather than what they think they should want. Later, a young associate approached me privately. "My family wants me to move back home to help with my sister's children," she confided. "They don't understand why I want to stay here and build my career. How did you handle the guilt?" Without hesitation, I invited her to coffee the following day. Our conversation ran long as I shared my experience and listened to hers. The patterns were different, but the underlying dynamic familiar. Expectations that she would sacrifice her needs for others. Guilt when she considered refusing. "Setting boundaries doesn't mean you don't love them," I told her. "Sometimes it's the most loving thing you can do. It allows everyone to grow instead of remaining stuck in unhealthy patterns." As she left, visibly relieved at finding someone who understood, I realized how much my personal journey had become a resource for others. The pain and conflict hadn't been wasted. They'd been transformed into wisdom I could share. That autumn, I hosted a Thanksgiving gathering that would have been unimaginable 2 years earlier. My parents drove from Michigan. Melissa brought the children from Ohio, though Kevin stayed behind for a work commitment. Taylor came from Milwaukee, and Jordan simply walked across our shared garden. Colleagues, neighbors, and friends completed the circle of 20 people who filled my home with conversation and laughter. As I looked around the expanded dining table that spilled into the living room, I saw the family I had chosen alongside. The family I was born into, no longer separate entities but interconnected parts of my whole life. Mom found me in the kitchen as I prepared coffee. "I was just thinking about last Christmas," she said. "How tense everything was. And now look at us. We've all grown," I observed. "Some of us more than others," she acknowledged with a meaningful look. "I understand now what you were fighting for. It wasn't just about the house." "No," I agreed. "It was about being valued for who I am, not just what I could provide for others." She nodded thoughtfully. "I wish I'd learned that lesson sooner. For both my children's sake. The simple acknowledgement meant everything, validating not just my decision, but the difficult path I'd taken to protect it. Later, as guests departed with leftovers and hugs, I found myself standing on my front porch watching taillights disappear down the street. The journey from that confrontation to this moment had been neither straight nor easy. There had been painful silences, awkward attempts at reconnection, setbacks, and breakthroughs. What emerged wasn't perfect harmony or complete resolution. Family dynamics built over decades couldn't transform overnight. But something fundamental had shifted. I had stopped seeking validation from people unable to give it. I had built a life based on my authentic needs rather than others' expectations. And paradoxically, that seemingly selfish act had created space for healthier relationships with everyone around me. Standing there in the crisp November air, I understood the deeper lesson of my journey. True family love requires respect, not sacrifice. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out, but foundations that allow authentic connection to flourish. By refusing to continue dysfunctional patterns, I had offered everyone, including myself, the opportunity to grow beyond them. The house behind me represented far more than square footage or property value. It embodied the courage to define my own worth, the strength to withstand disapproval, and the wisdom to create space for joy on my own terms. Every room, every decision, every improvement reflected a simple but profound truth. Our lives belong first to ourselves, and the most generous gift we can offer others is our authentic presence rather than our sacrifice. As the last car turned the corner, I returned to my candlelit living room, now quiet but still warm with the energy of connection. The journey wasn't complete. It never would be. But I was exactly where I belonged, in a home built on truth and boundaries, surrounded by relationships that nourished rather than depleted me. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice that disappointed your family, but was right for you? How did you handle the fallout? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might help someone else find the courage to set necessary boundaries. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share so others facing similar struggles know they're not alone. Remember, sometimes the most challenging paths lead to the most meaningful growth. Thank you for being part of this journey with me, and may you find the strength to create a life that truly belongs to you.